Of the 100-odd islands that make up the Scillies, only 5 are inhabited. There's St Mary's, the chief one, where Mr Harold Wilson has his holiday home, St Agnes, St Martin's, Briar and Tresco. Frequent ferry services link all the islands, and you're free to come and go as you please. Free, that is, on all of them, except Tresco. Well, you have to pay to come to Tresco, 15 pence or 3 shillings in real money. It's the only place in the Scillies and one of the few in the country that levies a landing tax. And the money goes not to the government, but to a private individual. It goes to the Laird of Tresco, to the man who runs this island, Lieutenant Commander Thomas Dorrien-Smith.
Over this side.
The commander's presence is noticeable everywhere. Everything is owned or held under lease to him. There are, for example, 4 hotels and guest houses. The commander holds the lease on all of them. The generating equipment which supplies the electricity on the island is run by the commander. Every cottage and holiday home is leased from, you've guessed it, the commander. But the mighty multi-million-pound post office is independent, of course. They still deliver the mail. Yet the post office building is leased from the commander. There are no cars on the island by order of the commander, so if the people who live here need to get around the place, they have to walk or go by cycle, or if they're lucky, they can hitch a lift in a contraption like this. It's a cross between a motorcycle and a lorry, and it putt-puts genteelly round the island at a sedate 4 miles an hour. A 185 people live on Tresco. Like the rest of the Scillies, the economy consists of 2 main industries. They grow flowers. These bulbs now being planted in the commander's fields will be the fresh-cut flowers in your home next February. The other industry is tourism. This year, about 45,000 holidaymakers will come to Tresco, principally to visit the lushly beautiful gardens of Tresco Abbey, the home of the Dorrien-Smith family. In one way or another, the livelihood and standard of living of everybody on Tresco depends on the commander. From his house, high up on a hill in the center of the island, he's virtual ruler of all that he can see. What's it like running your own country?
Well, you might put it like that. Running an island like this is almost running one's own country. One has to deal with every aspect of life, and all the problems that the central government has to deal with, really. Even though they may be small problems, they're still problems, and they still have to be solved. And, I mean, nobody mends the road for us unless we mend it ourselves. Nobody lays on the water unless we put the pipes down ourselves. Nobody gives us electricity unless we generate it ourselves and lay the wires and connect up and do everything like that. Nobody's going to bury us unless we conduct our own funerals and dig our own graves and make our own coffins. And we're the coal merchants and the butchers and bakers, candlestick makers and everything.
Many of the people here do seem to have some of their rights a little restricted. I mean, they're not allowed to keep dogs, even though, in fact, you have dogs. They're not allowed to have motor cars. Isn't this something that you really don't have the right to insist on?
Well, I think anybody has a right to insist upon something if on their private property if they want to. There's these things aren't done without reason. It isn't done just out of malice or something. It's simply that we've got very good shooting on the island here, and if everybody had a dog, there'd be illegitimate puppies and things all over the place, and they'd get all over the island, and we wouldn't have very good shooting. And shooting is quite a valuable asset, as one knows in any country or state. It's quite a thing.
The commander succeeded to his position in 1955. He's the 4th generation of the Smith family to have held this position, but their rise to power goes back 137 years. Up until the 19th century, life had been very hard in the Scillies. The people had been victims of absentee landlords, and nothing had been done for years. Their only source of income was from smuggling and from the plundering of shipwrecks. These were quite lucrative. There's a traditional prayer that is supposed to have been written by the chaplain to the Isles of Scilly, which reads, "We pray thee, O Lord, not that there will be any wrecks, but should there be any, that thou wilt direct them to the Isles of Scilly for the benefit of the poor inhabitants." Well, that kind of thing came to an abrupt end in 1834 when Augustus Smith, the first of the family here, bought the lease for the whole of the Scilly Isles from the Duchy of Cornwall. Augustus was a classic example of the benevolent Victorian despot. He completely reorganized the social and economic life of the islands. He built roads and houses, reallocated farmland, planted trees, and introduced new crops. He thought education was a good thing, so he built more schools and filled them by making the islanders pay a penny a week for each child attending school and twopence a week if they didn't. His friends thought he was mad to do all this, and he was dubbed, appropriately enough, Silly Smith. Silly or not, the tradition of firm government has come down through the years, and today that tradition still holds, although only Tresco is still in the Smith family's hands.
I don't see how you can run it any other way on an island. Everybody on this island is essential to the island. All the work they do is essential to not only to the whole community and to their next door neighbours, far more so than it really is for me, because I'm fortunate in some ways. I could go away and live quite happily anywhere else. But I think, as I have explained to the people on the island, and I think it's a point they understand, that they expect to go to the estate office and draw their wages every Friday, and there's nobody can put the money into the estate office except themselves. And if they don't put the money into the estate office, I can't carry them, and I would go away, and the whole thing would get into a turmoil. And so it does seem that it's more or less the only way to run it. I don't know, maybe other ways, but we haven't discovered it on Tresco.